Hey YouTube, I am back with another video, and since October has officially come to an end, we must do an October wrap-up. I've read 10 books this month. I did not finish one, and I am currently reading one book. Alright, so let's get into it. So, the first three, and I'm going to talk about them together because they're a trilogy. I did end up finishing the entire March trilogy, which I gave, I think, the first book 4 stars and the other 2 5-star ratings. I definitely know I gave the third one 5 stars. My friends, YouTube, this is a great trilogy. I don't think I've ever had more respect for John Lewis than I do now, and the civil rights movement. This book didn't sugarcoat the movement. It was from John Lewis's perspective, so it does not cover everything, but he has a hand in a lot of major historical moments that happened during the 1960s. The trilogy starts off talking about his childhood and how he wanted to become a preacher and how certain parts of that led him into working in the civil rights movement. In SNCC and not SNCC, CORE and such things as that. So, yes, I was blown away. I got emotional a lot. Luckily, reading at work has helped me learn how to hold back tears, so I guess I don't embarrass myself in public. But when people come in and they want to read something about Black history, or they're like, what's a good series or books for my child to read who are Black children or such and so forth, whatever, I do suggest this book or these 3 books. If I can ever run into John Lewis, I will thank him for all the things that he's done, because actually he's around DC a lot, and if I could, I would actually get him to sign these. He was at the National Book Festival, but I was working. Alright, so March, I loved all 3. I would definitely highly suggest you reading these or picking these up. The next book I've read, which was not originally on my TBR, was Another Day in the Death of America by Gary Young. I was supposed to, and this was last minute, I was supposed to host a event with Gary Young at my job, and it was canceled last minute. He is from the UK, and he had some travel issues where he couldn't get to the event on time, so it was canceled, unfortunately. I really like this book. It talks about the deaths of 10 children due to gunfire. The age range is 19 to 9. However, even though 18 is like the legal age of adulthood, he talks about seeing their pictures, hearing things they were interested in. To him, they were very much children. And once you read this, you definitely understand where he's coming from. Kind of looking back, I mean, I'm 25, I'm not that old, but looking back on my 18-year-old, 19-year-old self, yeah, I was definitely very much still a child in a certain sense, trying to understand adulthood. And though this doesn't really touch on gun control, it talks about, what happens to people when there aren't very good gun laws in place, and how other social structures take a place in these children's death, and who ends up getting justice and who doesn't get justice. Definitely a 5-star read. It was very hard to get through at the end, definitely by the end of it. It definitely is in a journalistic tone, and he made some really good points. Like, there were some things about parenthood, and also like losing a parent who loses a child. Each chapter has like a specific theme he kind of touches on. Here are my notes, and I was so ready to ask him questions, but unfortunately I never got to meet him. But if you get a chance, please pick this book up. I will be doing a Christmas video. I think this will kind of be a good Christmas gift. But yeah, so anyways, let's move forward. My next book, and I read this with Cal Lewis, is Nobody Casualties of America's War on the Vulnerable from Ferguson to Flint and Beyond. Me and Cal talked about this. I do have a review. I haven't uploaded it yet, but it's coming soon. I gave this book 4 stars. I read this at the same time I was watching 13th, Ava DuVernay's movie about the 13th Amendment and how slavery is still legal for prisoners and how that's a huge problem. I think these two pieces of literature, media, whatever you want to say it is, they go hand in hand. If you already know a lot about Flint, Ferguson, and some of the other like gun laws or whatever that's going on in this book, this might not be the book for you. However, I think this is a great resource for people who aren't really in tune with what's going on and they need more information about the subject. So the funny thing is, when me and Cal were talking, he mentioned that I read a lot of heavy books, and in my mind I'm like, I don't think things are that heavy too much. So I asked my aunt, like, did she agree? She was like, yeah, you do read heavy stuff. And while I was kind of thinking about the things I read, I was in the middle of Zadie Smith's new book, Swing Time, and the book is talking about these two girls and their friendship, how they come of age together and kind of separate, even though they both love dance. One is a very good dancer, the other girl is not so much, but she is good with rhythm and music. And there's a lot of things that touch on class and race, and I wasn't really getting it until I read the New York Times article on this book, and the journalist is talking to Zadie Smith. So I was in the middle of this book when I was kind of thinking about the heavy stuff I was reading. I gave this a 4-star rating. I'm going to save majority of my thoughts for the review that I still need to film, but will be up before the 15th, before this book comes out. And this was another kind of heavy read, even though I was reading a lot of nonfiction. The first 5 books I read this month were nonfiction books, and this one is my first fiction of the month. It was definitely heavy. It was very cerebral. There were moments where I wasn't sure exactly where Zadie Smith was going, but by the time I finished, I understood what she was saying, and it was a great read. So, that being said, with me reading all these kind of heavier books, I ended up picking up The Mothers by Britt Bennett. I plan on doing another review on this one as well. And even though this does, which now I see what people are saying when they talk about my reading, this does have some heavy themes, but I think I saw this as a lighter book for me to read. As you can tell, there's maybe one sticky note. It was just kind of like a section that I really enjoyed, but no marking up. I could actually share this with someone. This does have themes of abortion and suicide, so those might be triggers for you. I think you might want to skip on this book. However, they don't go into super details about those things. However, 4-star rating. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I will tell you more about it when I do my review. And to continue on my light reading, because I did kind of feel weighed down when reading this month with all the nonfiction I was reading, I ended up picking up Akata Witch. And this was a great read. I gave it 4 stars. I'm seeing, I think, Nindi Okorafor, the author for this, I think she did post something on Goodreads about this having a second book, so I'm guessing this is about to be a series, which I understand it to be. I thought placing it in Nigeria and having, they were a Black American child that was told to go to, made to go to Nigeria because they were getting in trouble. This book is about Sunny, who is on the cover here, and she finds out that she has powers. She is a witch, and it is a bit of an insult to be called an Akata, which means like bush animal, and a lot of people use it to describe Black Americans, or it's a Igbo word, which is a ethnic group in Nigeria. And they kind of put a positive spin on that with this title and where Okorafor is going with this book. What I did like about it, and what I'm liking about reading some of these YA novels that deal with ancestral magic and powers, you kind of see the relationship between certain cultures like African culture and Latina or Latinx culture, I'm sorry. And how this book didn't sugarcoat her powers. A lot of some of the trials and tribulations the kids had to go through were a bit physically painful, and there was a constant threat of death in this book. If you're a parent, I don't know exactly how you feel about that, but I think there is something culturally going on with here where death is not. It's making it as something that's kind of like a natural thing that happens, and that's something that isn't necessarily to be afraid of, which I appreciate, because even as an adult, I'm still kind of trying to grapple with my ideas of death and it being this inevitable yet scary thing. So yeah, pick up A Witch for yourself or your child. There was a little bit of cussing, but not too much. I mean, unfortunately, teenagers cuss. That's just the reality of it. Your teenager might not cuss, but a lot of them do. So I can see why authors put that in YA novels to make it seem more realistic. And the next book I have already put up a review about. I read this at the very beginning of October. I pretty much finished it at the beginning of October, which is All American Boys. This is a young adult novel about a black boy and a white boy who goes to the same high school. The white boy witnesses the black boy being brutalized by a police officer in his neighborhood. Great book. I suggest you read it. And the last book I got, which was not really, is fictional, but is a book of illustrations. It is Carrie, this book by Abby Jacobson. She is a co-writer and stars in Broad City with Ilana Gazler. I think it's Gazler or Grasler. I'm sorry, I don't know. But I ended up seeing her speak and I got the book, and it was also signed. The one thing about authors once authors get to a certain like part of their career, like when they are at the peak of their career, they don't sit after these events and sign them. These are already like pre-signed. She did sign it herself, but we didn't get to sit down, take pictures, or actually watch her sign the books. It was just way too many people at the event. So this is her take on what might be in certain people's bags. So, for example, this is what she thinks is in Oprah's bag. She thinks there's an O magazine quotes that she writes down about, her own quotes, tons of money, and like all these keys to her multiple houses that Abby thinks she has. It's actually pretty funny, and it was very light read. I just read it. I don't even think it took me an hour to get through this whole thing. She has people like Beyonce and Mario, as in Mario from Mario Brothers, and she has a bag for Barbie. So it was very funny. I did not know she was like went to art school and whatnot before she did Broad City. But this was actually like a refreshing thing to sit down. I read it like while I was drinking my morning my morning tea, and just kind of laughed. I do have a video that I am inspired to do by this book, so that will be coming up soon as well. And so the two books I didn't finish, and one I'm going to keep reading, but one I did not finish is Paul Beatty, The Sellout. The Sellout by Paul Beatty. As you know, he just won the Man Booker Prize for this year, which I'm not surprised. If you looked up any reviews by YouTubers on the Man Booker and this book specifically, they all pretty much loved it, and that's one of the only books they all kind of agreed on that was fabulous. It is satire. It is about a black man who ends up being on trial with the Supreme Court for trying to reinstate slavery of Black people. So far, it is funny. There are certain references I don't get. I think they're cultural references and they might be a little bit before my time. But when I do get a reference, it's like, it's funny, but then it's like, ooh, that is such a major and a harsh critique on society. And it's not that they aren't warranted. It's just like, ooh, I get why this is like really smart. But I kind of lost my steam. I put this book down, read something else, did something else, and I kind of lost my interest in this book. Also, at the end of the month, things got pretty hectic and stressful for me, so this wasn't really the book I wanted to pick up. I eventually do want to finish this book, but I don't think I'm going to finish this anytime soon. So I tried to finish this for the BookTube Speak Up reading group, and that just didn't happen this month. So I will hopefully return to this in the future. I do plan on keeping it and finishing it. This isn't something I'm going to try and DNF for long. We'll see. And the last book that I started at the end of the month but did not finish is Fly Girl by Omar Tyree. This is a book that came out in the 90s. I was to be buddy reading this with Mathis, and we were at first. However, he is promoting his own book, Confused Spice. And I'll leave the link down below so you guys can check it out and purchase it if you're interested. And I totally understand that, but I think I'm going to continue to finish this book. So there is no hard feelings here. Things have gotten crazy. Something about the end of October, things are just getting like crazy. So I will unfortunately finish this without Mathis. Hopefully everything goes well with him promoting his book, and we will buddy read something another time. So that is my October wrap up. You guys have actually been doing a great job of letting me know what you're currently reading in the comments, so please continue to do that. Let me know what you've read in October, if you plan on picking up any of the books that I have read, or even if you didn't like any of the books that I mentioned in my wrap up. And I will see you guys next time. Bye, YouTube.